Hey everybody, and welcome to the Wardens of Destiny lore tour. Tonight we'll be talking about Guild Wars 1, the bits of it you need to know to better understand Guild Wars 2. However, before we get to that, there's just a few things you need to know that happen before Guild Wars 1's events start. Think of it as Guild Wars prehistory. The gods came to Tyria and brought the humans with them, but they also had with them a race called the Forgotten, which looked sort of like Crate, but behaved nothing like them. Think of them as the gods' little helpers. So everything's going along swimmingly when the gods decided to gift magic to the world. But back then, magic was much more powerful than now. So powerful, in fact, people went to war to control it. And it drove the humans to the brink of extinction. So it was that King Doric, the first human king, made the long pilgrimage to Ara, the holy city. Yes, I said Ara. Now it's a dungeon, but back then it was a city, and a holy one at that. The very city the gods lived in resided on Tyria. Ara was the capital city of the Kingdom of Or, which we'll talk more about shortly. King Doric petitioned the gods to take the magic away, and though most of them agreed this was a good idea, one god didn't. His name was Abaddon, and he was followed by a seafaring race called the Marganites. So the other gods went to war with Abaddon and eventually defeated him, after which they imprisoned him and his followers in the realm of torment. Then they took the magic of the world and placed it inside 4 giant stones, each sealed with a drop of King Doric's blood. These bloodstones were sealed in a great volcano, along with the 5th stone, which was the keystone needed to unlock the magic. Then the gods decided they'd interfere with the world long enough and left, leaving behind the Forgotten to keep things running smoothly. The humans recovered and eventually went on to become the dominant race on all Tyria. So dominant, in fact, that other races, like the Char and Centaurs, were driven out of their own lands as humans expanded. The humans built a huge wall called the Great Northern Wall to keep the Char out, and that wall stood unbroken for 74 years. And the Forgotten had to make a choice. Did they go to war with the humans, or did they leave and let things unfold as they will? They chose to leave, moving into the Crystal Desert, an area so inhabitable that it wouldn't support human life. And there they remained, until we forgot about them, pretty much why they called it Forgotten. Remember the Bloodstones? Well, that volcano they were in exploded, and the stones were tossed unceremoniously all over Tyria, where they leaked magic with all sorts of unexpected results. And we might get back to them later if we have time. Back then there were 3 human kingdoms, Ascalon, Kryta, and Or. The guilds in these kingdoms were extremely powerful political bodies that constantly warred with each other. They were so powerful, kings needed their support to hold power. So the war between guilds became wars between nations, and the guild wars began. It was the beginning of the end of humanity's dominance. One of the things about the guild wars was that they lasted for a long, long time, weakening all 3 human kingdoms. At the same time, the 4 legions of the Char, Iron, Blood, Ash, and Flame, were reassessing the situation. Yes, you heard right. Back then, the Flame Legion was allied with the rest of the Char, and in fact was the legion that came up with the plan to take back the land they previously held. Their theory was that they couldn't win against the humans because the humans had gods and they didn't. So they went off in search of gods of their own and came across a powerful but quite nasty race called the Titans. The Titans gave them the power they craved. This is where Guild Wars 1 begins, with the Char swarming the Great Northern Wall while King Adelburn watches from a tower high above them in Ascalon. And these are the very first words Guild Wars players ever hear, read by the not quite ready for primetime Wardens of Destiny's players.
The last day dawns on the kingdom of Ascalon. It arrives with no fanfare, no tolling of alarms. Those who will remember will speak fondly of the warm morning breeze. People carry on with their daily lives, unaware that in a short while, everything they have ever known will come to an end.
Scribe?
Yes, brother.
These Char are relentless, but we shall hold the wall at all costs.
Yes, my lord.
Take this message to Sir Titus. Go forth and recruit the strongest, the smartest. Bring me the bravest in all of Ascalon. Find me the heroes who will lead our kingdom to glory.
As you command, my king. At which point you, as the hero of Guild Wars 1, appears in the city of Ascalon, where you meet a host of interesting characters, including a little girl named Gwen, who sounds something like this.
Can you find my flute? When I grow up, I want to be an adventurer just like you. Can I follow you around and make a complete nuisance of myself?
And yes, for the first several levels of play, Gwen was always there, particularly if you went upstairs somewhere and she followed you and you couldn't get past her and had to map out and start over, which happened often enough to comment on. Anyway, this is where Guild Wars 1 begins, in Ascalon City, and behind us in the surrounding countryside, that was the township of Ashford. This idyllic area is where we started to learn our characters, and I highly suggest you don't get too attached to it because it's about to be completely destroyed. The destruction of the Great Northern Wall in Ascalon is an event known as the Searing, during which the Char shot giant exploding crystals from cauldrons, magic given to them by the Titans. One has to wonder if this is some of that old magic come back to haunt us. Now, there's been some confusion between the Searing and the Faux Fire, so I thought I'd take a second to cover that now, even though the Faux Fire takes place far in the future. So far, in fact, that it's not actually covered in Guild Wars 1 at all. More info on the Faux Fire can be found in the Guild Wars novel Ghosts of Ascalon. So the Searing is the initial destruction of the Great Northern Wall, which also left most of the areas surrounding Ascalon in ruins. Now, this event happened in 1172 AE. The Faux Fire didn't happen until 1090, 18 years later. So one might say the Searing was the start of the events that eventually led to the Faux Fire, which is where King Adelburn, who we'll talk about shortly, on the cusp of finally losing his city to the surrounding Char armies, smashed his magical flaming sword Madgear into the ground, immediately destroying the invaders, but at the same time his own people, turning them into vengeful ghosts. You've possibly had to kill a few of those while I've been talking. It's interesting to think that these ghosts are the very same Ascalonians who lived here 250 years ago when some of us played Guild Wars 1. They've been here since. We disperse them and they reform over and over again. Another point of interest is that Ridlock Brimstone carries the sword Sohothin, the twin blade to Madgear, which was once carried by Adelburn's son Rurik. So now we're going to take a walk to see some of the sites, and if you have any questions, this would be a good time for them. Okay, this area where we're leaving now is actually part of the Great Northern Wall and the ruins of the city of Ascalon. And feel free to run by the ghosts.
Replenishing.
Murder them relentlessly, it works. When I say it took place in 1070 AE, AE stands for after the Exodus. All time in Ascalon is measured by the exodus of the gods from Tyria. So when they left Ara and went up to wherever they went after, which we don't know where they went actually, after the Exodus. And all of the various places in Ascalon, in Guild Wars 1, everyone had their own calendar. So the, Tyrian calendar is not the same as the Canton calendar. They measure the years quite differently, which is from the founding of Kainang Center. You don't have this waypoint, you might want to get it. Here you'll see the Ascalon dungeon, and even if you don't complete the story mode dungeon, watching the opening cutscene is really cool, and that happens as soon as you enter, even if you're alone, and it's well worth a look. Now, if you decide to continue on and play through the story mode of the Ascalon Catacombs dungeon and actually watch the cutscenes, I know, but it's worth it. You'll see not only King Adelburn, but also several of the skill trainers from Prophecies, including Master Ranger Nente, Kasha Blackblood, points for guessing her profession, and Relena and Vasar, the Elementalist and Mesmer trainers. Okay, let's keep going.
Behold the ocean's power!
Just heading around this hill here, and this whole area, has now been reclaimed, but It once looked very, very different, which we'll get into shortly. Anyone need a juvenile red moa? There's one right here. You can tame it. Sweet pass.
Jesus.
Red moa is a red moa is a really good pets because they give you that like extra might and stuff.
Oh, did they give mine? That's cool.
Yeah, well, I don't know, it's might, but they increase the damage of the party, so I always use a red moa when I'm on the range or when I'm in a group. Okay, so right ahead of us, you can see down there's a point of interest.
Pain for pain.
Called the Shards of War. Okay, and this is one of the searing crystals. This is one of the giant crystals that fell from the sky on Ascalon. So imagine you're going about your business, you're enjoying your day, maybe you're selling stuff in the market, or you're gathering berries in the field, or you're just having lunch. Then out of nowhere, the sky darkens and the first crystal hits. The explosion causes a nearby structure to crumble. A barn, a house, a stone tower. Nothing can stand against a direct hit from a crystal. Not even the Great Northern Wall, which you've depended upon your entire life to keep you safe. No longer anything between you and the Char who previous generations had driven out of their land. You probably didn't even know that, though, or think about it if you did. This was your land, the place you were born, and the one thing that kept you and all your people safe was being blown to pieces before your very eyes. This is what the people of Ascalon were confronted with on the day of the searing. Now, during the intervening years, much of what you see around you has healed. But after the searing, this place was a wasteland. Not a blade of grass grew, not a living tree, just a desolate, barren badlands filled with devourers, earth elementals, and gargoyles. It's a real party. Actually, we're going to walk to the next location, but we're walking the beginning of Prophecies, which I described here. The first Guild Wars game. The very beginning of it started and took place 2 years before everything else did. So you go and you play through the pre-searing, the cutscene for the searing, go through the searing, and then the rest of the game took place 2 years later, which I thought was pretty interesting. Just want to don't miss my turnoff here. Sorry.
Nothing.
I'm teasing the Devourer, don't mind me. Oh look, lots of ghosts. So next stop of our tour is just ahead. This is the Abbey ruins. It's the ruins of Ashford Abbey, which many people I'm sure will remember from the original Guild Wars. And this is the very, very first met Menlo, one of the key characters in the Guild Wars series, and everyone's favorite monk. And he was in a relationship with Sin, who was everyone's least favorite elementalist. No accounting for taste. I'm not actually kidding. Sin was like this spoiled rich brat with fire magic at her disposal. Not really a good combination. Anyway, the catacombs under the monastery down here was this huge underground labyrinth with its own quests, and for many people it was the highlight of pre-searing Ascalon. And it was one of my favorite areas in all of Guild Wars 1. So most of that is closed off now, but imagine that this area actually ran beneath entire zones. I mean, entire areas of a zone. There's a big, huge, and multiple entrances and multiple exits and all kinds of stuff going on. And of course, the Ascalon Ghost is still here, but the rest of the catacombs has sadly been closed off due to time. Probably caved in during one of the searing crystal attacks. So we're going back out. Do I have any questions?
You mentioned gargoyles.
I did mention gargoyles, and there's only one place in Guild Wars 2 that you can actually now find them. Any ideas? Anyone know?
No.
No idea.
Halloween Labyrinth. Only place that they still exist. There's none here.
Oh,
But
really?
they do exist in the Halloween Labyrinth. Yep,
I don't
there's
remember.
none in the open world.
I don't remember.
Gargoyles just seem to have vanished from the face of Tyria. But people have speculated about it. There's been actually a lot of speculation about what happened to the gargoyles. So
I could outrun a centaur.